Good afternoon, everyone. Or I should say good day, because again, some people are going to read the, or not read, but watch this message at different times, maybe in the future. But right now it is 12, what is it? Oh no, it's 11 a.m., so it's actually still morning. It seemed like it was later to me than it really was, but it's good that it's still morning because I got an appointment that I need to go to and I need to get ready for it. It's probably quickly after I get off, but I wanted to share something today, and at the very part of it, when you really just take it from for at face value, it may not seem the most edifying, but I pray that it will be, because we're going to talk about hell today and what it's like. We're going to get a little bit of a picture of what it's like, and but I mean, for me, I don't think of hell as it is a place that is terrible. It's fire and brimstone and all that. I think what that's mentioned. I'm not sure exactly where in the Bible that is, but whatever hell, whatever the worst part about it is, to me the worst part is it doesn't have anything to do with fire as much as it does being separated from God eternally, and it so and most people, unfortunately, I've been told before that I come across as sort of a fire and brimstone teacher, and that's not my intent. My intent is to teach the gospel the way that it's taught. Now, Jesus, I'm never going to be able to teach it as well as he did. Nobody can, but we are called to teach it in his footsteps, if you will. If we're going to teach the word, we got to teach it for what it is, and it's mostly, more people go to heaven, or go to hell than they do to than they go to heaven, and so that's why Jesus taught more about hell than he did about heaven, and he didn't do that to condemn anyone. It was to stick to the truth. And so let me read something real quick, which I believe I've done. I know that I've that I've did a done messages on this before, but let's see. I'm going to go in the book of Matthew real quick, and the um, the fact is, let's see. It's Matthew 7, I believe 13 and 14, if I have my address right. Okay, yes. So Matthew 7 verses 13 and 14 say, "Enter by the narrow gate, for wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leads to destruction. There are many who go in by it, because narrow is the gate, and difficult is the way which leads to life, and there are few who find it." So what's that saying? It's a very stark reminder that, hey, most people end up in hell. And for those of you who've been watching my videos for the past while, and if you've spoken to me over the past 3 weeks, you know that I had a friend of mine who died, and um, to my knowledge, he didn't accept Christ, and I pray that I'm wrong in that, because he was in the hospital for a week and a half before he died. He went in the hospital on March 8th and then died the 18th. So that is a long time. There's no doubt in my mind at all that Jesus revealed himself to him in the last days, in his last days, that is. The fact is, the question that remains unanswered it is answered ultimately, but not answered. I don't have the answer. Is, did he accept Jesus? And if he did, he knows more about Jesus right now than I do, because remember the thief on the cross. The thief on the cross accepted Jesus, in very very shortly before his last breath, because he died with Jesus on that cross, and Jesus didn't say, well, you have some things to make up for before I grant you a place in heaven. He didn't say that. He said, today you will be with me in paradise. So we know that all who come to believe in Jesus will are and repent of their sins are assured a place in heaven. It doesn't matter if it's on their deathbed. Now, you might not, nobody knows when they're gonna die. I could go to my appointment that I have in a little bit and not never come back possibly, because I could get into an accident, or and God forbid, and that's not likely to happen, but it can happen. So that's why there should never be any hesitancy on our part, or hesitation is probably the better word, that we, well, in accepting Christ, because we don't know when we're going to have an opportunity. We don't know if we are going to take our last breath in it unexpectedly and have a heart attack or something. Does Jesus have a way of revealing himself then? I believe he does, because I don't put any boundaries at all on Christ. But that being said, I mean, we don't know when our very last breath's going to be. We don't know how that's going to play out. So we don't want to wait and say, oh, I'll accept Christ tomorrow, because we don't know if there's going to be a tomorrow. And for many people, unfortunately, they reject the plain truth that Jesus Christ is Lord. And those who accept that are on the narrow gate, which is what we all want to be on. But for those who don't know Jesus, they are going to come to know the truth, because they know that they are separated from God, and they're going to cry out and hope that, and they're going to know the truth of what they eventually rejected, and they're going to hope for their loved ones and people that they know, that that those people come to know the truth. And so I wanted to thank my friend. I won't use the name, but I got a text message from a friend yesterday, because I was actually at the bank, and I was taking care of some business that needed to be done, and I all of a sudden started to think about Sean, my friend who died 3 weeks ago today, or 3 weeks ago yesterday. Today's Tuesday, so yesterday was 3 weeks. And I think about him all the time, but I don't have too many breakdowns, but this time I did. And what I think triggered it was, I already had it in mind that I was going to send him a text message. I wanted to send a text saying that I missed him. And I don't know, it only came to me maybe a minute before I did it. And then so I looked up his contact, clicked his contact in my phone, and then I just kept it very short. I said, "Goodbye, my friend. I miss our chats." And that the text message went through as if he were still here. So obviously, the line, the phone, that line is still active. His wife, it's actually his wife's plan, but it might actually be his own, because she says that she can't change anything until she can't get rid of that line until she has his death certificate. So that's kind of what she's waiting on there. But anyway, and I don't know. I've never had to do that. I have not personally. I have had people in my life that have died, but I've never been one to deal with the after effects, in terms of, I've just dealt with the mourning, but not the family stuff and all the nonsense that you have to go through after somebody dies. There's so much to work out. There's paperwork. There's this, that, and the other thing, that it's almost like you can't mourn right away. I mean, people have so much to do that it makes it hard to mourn, which is really, really sad, because dealing with the loss of somebody, is always hard enough, and then you have all this other stuff that you have to do. But anyway, so that triggered the emotion in me. So after I got home from the bank, thankfully, I got a ride, and I was able to kind of hold my emotions in. Not that I wanted to hold them in, but I didn't want to, break down right in front of at the bank. So what I did is I was able to sort of keep it in check. until I got home, and then I had, a little bit of a cry. I don't know if I would call it a breakdown, but it was definitely a morning that I was a little surprised that it hit because I only had one other um, time that I broke down after he was already gone, and that was at I was at Cold Stone Creamery with my fiance Christina at the time, and I couldn't hold it in and kind of broke down there. So yesterday was a little bit less severe or less intense, if you will, but I realize that grief just comes whenever it wants. It's not, there's no timetable for it, and that's kind of, anyway, I'm kind of new to that because I've had people that have even been close to me that died, but usually I mourned for them, and then once I did, I was not, I don't want to say done with it, but I didn't, it wasn't spread out like this one seems like it's going to be. But anyway, I don't want to talk too much about that. What I want to talk about is I got a message because I shared about my breakdown, if that's what you want to call it. I put it on WhatsApp, and some of you watching this video undoubtedly will have gotten that message because I had just, I just requested prayer that I was hurting yesterday, and 3 weeks after my friend died, and but I got all these encouraging, people saying they were praying for me, which was great. I got them by text messages. I got them on the WhatsApp app because I shared it with multiple people, and not just those from the WhatsApp app, but people that I share my biblical insights and prayer requests and so forth. And one of my friends texted me back. I won't use his name, but he I don't know if I already mentioned this, but he mentioned that those who those who reject Jesus, they're going to realize their darkness, and they know where they are, and so they're going to want to know, they're going to want to warn other people. And so he said that if Sean didn't accept Christ, he said the best way you can honor him is to be more bold about your faith, because right now he knows it, if that's the way that he chose, he knows that he chose it. He chose the way of destruction, and that he doesn't have eternal life with Christ. He knows that now. And so I just want to go ahead and read this passage, and I want to just encourage you. It is from Luke 16, or is it 16 or 19? Nope, it's 16, starting in verse 19. Again, this is an illustration that Jesus gives us as to what idea, how the people who choose destruction, what it's like for them, and how they are wanting to warn other people about it because they know there's no turning back. So they want people to know about Jesus so that they don't suffer like they are. Let's see, Luke 16 verse 19. There was a certain rich man who was clothed and clothed in purple and fine linen and fared sumptuously every day. For those of you who may not know, I had to look up that word. Sumptuous means expensive looking. That word, until just a few minutes ago, was a little bit too advanced for me. So actually, this is my second cut on this video because I didn't know that word. Didn't know how to pronounce it. I kind of knew what it meant by looking at the text, which I should have looked up the word for pronunciation beforehand, but I got it now. Sumptuously every day. But there was a certain beggar named Lazarus, full of stores, who was laid at his gate. Let's see. desiring to be fed with the crumbs which fell from the rich man's table. Moreover, the dogs came and licked his wounds, or licked his sores. So it was so it was that the beggar died. The rich man also died and was buried. And being in torment, let's see, in Hades, he lifted up his eyes and saw Abraham afar off and Lazarus in his bosom. Now, interestingly enough, in this time, I wanted to just clarify this because men don't have bosoms. So a bosom is a woman's chest by definition. So, we can say that it was that Lazarus was by Abraham's side, and we, maybe we're in a bosom somehow. I don't really know if this is the case, but it's not necessarily in heaven, but because we don't go to heaven straight to we don't have the full picture when we die. We know that the Lord that to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. The Bible does tell us that. So those who died and accepted Jesus, they know they're going to be with him because they're already in the presence of God. But it's going to be different when Jesus comes back and takes everybody that accepts him to heaven. So, I don't know if you go straight to heaven when you die, but I do know that you kind of wait for, you're in the presence of the Lord. So that would suggest that you're in heaven to a certain degree, but you don't have your glorified body yet. And what is that? What is that like? Well, I don't know because I've never had my body and soul separated. None of us have. So we don't know that, exactly what that's like. We don't know how it plays out, but we can have faith in it because we know that the Bible tells us to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. So do we go to heaven when we die if we accept Jesus? To some extent, we do, because we're in the presence of the Lord. But we don't know exactly how that's going to be different when we have our glorified bodies. And that's okay. That's okay. We just don't know that right now. But Hades is the holding place. Hell is not a permanent place in the sense of, eventually hell is going to be, but what's going to be permanent for us is we're going to be thrown into the lake of fire along and destroyed with Satan. But we're still going to be separated from the love of Christ. So, those who are in hell, in my opinion, or in this case, Hades, we want to, to me, it doesn't matter to me whether a hell is a place of absolute torture, which we definitely know it is, but when I'm talking about burning, that to me isn't the worst part of hell. The worst part is that there's no way to turn back to Christ anymore. So to me, that's the worst part about it. And I think that, with most Christians would probably agree with that. Just the idea that you had all this time, during your lifetime to accept Jesus, and now, because you've chosen a certain way, you've separated from him. So anyway, let's keep going. I wanted to just kind of explain that paragraph there, and that then he cried out. This is the rich man. Father Abraham, have mercy on me and send Lazarus that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, for I am tormented in this flame. But Abraham said, Son, remember that in your lifetime you received your good things, and likewise Lazarus evil things. But now he is comforted and you are tormented. And besides all this, between us and you there is a great gulf fixed, so that those who want to pass from here to you cannot, nor can those from there pass to us. So really what they're saying is there's a divide here that's so great that we can't, people might want to go, and visit, those that they know are comforted, but really everybody receives good and bad throughout their life. We all experience good times. We all experience bad times. What really matters is, did we accept Christ? Um, you know, but once we are gone, there is no turning back, and in any way, shape, or form. Um, then he said, "I beg you, therefore, Father, that you would send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers, that he may testify to them, lest they also come to this place of torment." So here we have this rich man who's saying, "I've got 5 brothers, I've got a family, I need to warn them, and I can't warn them myself, but please, send Lazarus on my behalf, so he may testify, so that my brothers can be spared from the pain that I'm going through." Let's see. Okay. Let's see. Did I read this? Unless they also come to this place of torment. Abraham said to him, "They have Moses and the prophets. Let them hear them. Hear them." And he said, "No, Father Abraham. But if one goes to them from the dead, they will repent." But he said to him, "If they do not hear Moses and the prophets, neither will they be persuaded through one rise from the dead." That's the end of that. Now, and that kind of reminds me of Sean too, because he used to tell me that if Jesus came down and revealed himself to him personally, he would accept that. Well, that's not true, because there's evidence all over the place of Jesus Christ and God's work, and if you choose to reject the plain truth, you're not going to just receive it because somebody tells you something, because that's really what happens when we witness to somebody. We're telling them, we're giving them, an account or an example of what God has done in our lives. So, and yet they still reject. And so, the interesting thing here is the Old Testament people. How did they know about God? How did they know about Jesus? Well, they didn't in the sense of everybody in the New Testament did, but they did know. They had an idea because they had talked about him, and the prophets were obviously people that were that would be able to tell the truth and of the future. And there's false prophets out there, but the prophets, they had the prophets, and we had the Old Testament in the way of the people of the Old Testament would know that that Jesus would eventually die for them. I mean, look into the book of Isaiah, my favorite book of the Old Testament, and the reason it's my favorite is because it has all these vivid depictions of the coming of Christ 700 or so years before he was even born. So it's pretty striking. And anytime I read through the book of Isaiah, especially when you get to those parts, I can't help but just be blown away. So anyway, what my point is here is that there's no turning back and no praying. There's no even point in praying for somebody that's already dead, because their destination is final. Now, if we want to pray for their soul one final time after we find out they died, that's fine, I think. Um, but there's no reason to continue to pray for somebody that when something is final. And but we have to realize, excuse me, um, I that was, I don't know if you guys heard that, but that was my home phone ringing. I just went ahead and clicked it off because most of the time uh, people don't even have my home number, so most of the time my home phone just rings with a bunch of advertisements and automated calls, things of that nature. But anyway, but we can't pray, anyone out of heaven, or excuse me, out of hell. I mean, we wouldn't want to pray them out of heaven, and so we can't pray somebody out of hell and into heaven. We can't do that. So once we know they're dead, we can't pray them to heaven. But what we can do is we have this illustration that Jesus tells us that those who reject Christ, they are aware of their final destination. They're truly aware of it when it is final, and they are going to be longing for those that they cared about in this life to come to the truth, so that they don't suffer. So the best thing we can do to honor those who have died and to our knowledge didn't know Christ. Maybe we will find out differently, find out otherwise that they did eventually accept Christ. But if not, we can still honor them by being more bold for our faith. So I want to just encourage you guys. I know that it doesn't seem that messages on hell are always the most edifying, but in this one I hope encourages you that if you know somebody that to your knowledge, has not accepted Christ, honor them by being more bold in your own faith. That's the best thing you can do, and that's the thing that you're responsible for. You're not responsible for how people receive the message. You're just responsible to give it. And so for those of you who have known somebody who has gone to be away from the Lord, and odds are we all know people that's happened to. Just if you know them and you know that they, to your knowledge, they didn't accept Christ, just be more bold for your own faith, and do your best to pass on the message, just like you are doing. But when somebody dies and you know that they're separated from the Lord, maybe I hope this message will encourage you to step it up a notch. And I thank my friend that sent me that message for the encouragement and the inspiration for this message. God bless you all. Take care. Have a wonderful day.